Hello, everybody. Probably be 2 or 3 minutes before we get started.
Bill, twice in a week.
It's great to see you. I assume you're in a resident role tonight?
For some reason, you're not muted, but I can't hear you.
Well, let me see if I can correct that.
Bill, you're coming through. I can hear you.
I can
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I unmuted myself again, so hopefully, can you
Yeah.
still not hear me,
No.
Karen?
I can hear you just fine too.
Yeah, maybe she's muted.
Well, it looks like we've got 7 people, so we'll give it a couple more minutes.
Hey, Bill.
You home, James?
Yes, I am.
Good. I worry about you on that commute.
Yeah, made it safe.
yeah.
Hey, Kim, thanks
Yeah.
for joining.
Hi there.
Axel's joining too. He misses his dad, and his dad just got home.
Oh,
Yeah.
I second that.
And sorry, guys, there was technical difficulties on my side, not you. So Bill, sorry.
Can you hear
I'm
me
crazy.
now?
Yep,
Can you hear me now? I feel like I'm in a Verizon commercial.
totally.
All right, just give it another minute and then we'll get started.
Hey, Bill, can I answer a question that
Of course.
Vicky sent to me, just so that everyone can hear it? She had a question about curb ramps on Cajon, that a number of curb ramps have gone in recently, and she asked about the notification for that. And the city does notification to the immediately adjacent property owners, but not to the RNO. And the same is for paving, which will be coming soon on Tejon. So Trupti, let me know if you need me to respond via email as well, but that's the answer. I was able to circle back with some of folks in our paving group to get that.
That sounds good. Yeah, I'll follow up with them because, it doesn't impact just people, when they're working on multiple ramps at an intersection where people are going to the park or something, it doesn't impact just the people who live there. So it would have been good to know or to be able to share widely. So, I heard other people saying, how come I didn't know about this? I'm like,
Yeah, it's because the paving
yeah, it makes sense.
paving notification goes to immediate property owners, not to the RNOs.
Sounds good.
So there you go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, I don't want to get started too late. So, well, we're up to 18 participants. I think that's a good number. So let's go ahead and get started. And thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. We did not have a monthly PCD meeting last month because this time slot was occupied by the overlays, the overlay town hall that we had, the final town hall that we had for the conservation overlay. So good to get everybody back into the standard PCD format. The first thing that James and I wanted to do was give everybody a quick update on where the overlay stands. We have completed all the town halls. There were 3 of them. I would say we were a little disappointed with attendance. We are attributing that primarily to the fact that it was the middle of the summer. But what we have not been disappointed with is the number of survey results we've received. So far, we've got approximately 280 surveys filled out. Our target to get to statistical significance is somewhere between 325 and 350. So we're getting pretty close to the target. Naomi in Amanda's office will be sending out an email to everybody that's taken the survey. It'll go out to the PCD list, and we may distribute it further if we can think of some effective ways to do that, that summarizes where we're at, but also makes a strong plea to continue to network with your neighbors, because we really want to get up to that 325 or 350. It'll be very important to establish credibility, both as we go to Amanda to get her formal agreement to take the overlay forward, but also once we're into the approval process with the planning committee and with city council. So we still have some work to be done. We think we're in pretty good shape, especially with the music festival coming up. Please come visit us. We'll have a table at the music festival. The SUNY will have a table there, and the NPI, Neighborhood Planning Initiative, and Overlay will be a big part of that. To quickly just go through each of the proposals and give you a quick reading on what the numbers are looking like so far with the 280 surveys. On reducing the bulk plane, we have the current survey results is 59 approving and 41 disapproving. For the height limit on low slope roofs, we've got a very strong 65% versus 35 that are not approving. For allowing dormers to pierce the bulk plane, 91% approval to a 9% disapproval. For requiring front porches, a 70% approval to a 30% disapproval. And then relative to, front porches, it looks like as far as the minimum porch width, the current 43% are looking for a minimum of 12 feet wide, followed by 17% at 20 and 15% at 8 feet. For capping overall square footage, we're at 48% versus 42%, 58% approve, 42% disapprove. And then for setting a minimum and maximum base building base height, approval is at 57% and disapprovals at 43%. Lastly, relative to brick, we have 38% that say we should not require brick, but we have the percentage isn't here. We have approximately a little less than 60% are either saying all buildings should require brick, or that replacing existing brick should be a building that's being replaced that has brick should be replaced with brick. So the working group, we actually just met previous to this meeting, and we're feeling very positive about these results. So we're pretty excited about hopefully getting this over the finish line and into Amanda's hands in 2, 3, 4 weeks, something like that. I don't know if there are any questions, or James, if I missed anything. James?
No, I think you covered it pretty well, Bill.
Okay. Any questions on the overlay? Hopefully most of you on the call were able to make it to one of the town halls. Okay, we've got a bashful group tonight. Okay, well, with that, we're going to move on to the second item on the agenda, which is the Fox Park update. This is actually the third time that the development group has been nice enough to come and update us. They want to give us an update on the timeline. And what I'm particularly interested in is they're going to talk a little bit more about TIF financing and where that's at relative to the overall project, And part of the reason that that's of particular interest to me is because the TIF financing was where the potential for having a pedestrian slash bike bridge crossing the railroad tracks was still a potential. So Kim, I saw you had joined us. Can I turn it over to you? And
Sure, and
thank you
I'm
for
going to
joining us.
immediately, thank you for letting us come back. And I'm going to immediately turn it over to Manuel, who I think would like to share his screen. We have a pretty short presentation because, as you said, we've been here a couple of times, but wanted to provide you guys an update on where we are on all the good stuff. And with that,
James,
if Manuel can share his screen, he'll get started.
Hi guys, this is Jose also.
Hi,
Thanks
Jose.
for joining
Sorry,
us, Jose.
didn't see you joined.
Hi everyone. Bill, could you please enable me to share my screen?
That's James's gig, so hopefully he's doing it right now.
Oh,
Sorry, I'm on it. Give me one sec.
Kim, can you just mention where each of the three of you are from? Which organization?
Sure, and you guys may see here, we've got a lot of folks on the call. Several folks from the city are here to help answer questions on this proposal as well. But from the Fox Park team, we have Jose Caradano and Manuel Jimenez, who are the property owners, myself and Slavica Park, who are with CRL Associates. And that, I'm just looking at the screen here, and that is it from our project team. And I know Dura is going to go next, but there's several folks from the city who have been working with us on this project as well.
I'm sure there are lots of folks. We all set, James?
not yet.
Having some difficulties. It's not allowing me to share. All right, Manuel, give it a try.
Oh, there we go.
Fantastic.
Can you see that?
Yes, looks great.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for giving us the opportunity to share some updates on our end and in our project. We are making a lot of progress with the city, and we're coming down to our final terms and negotiations. So we wanted and needed to speak with our neighbors first. Let me start here. You all know where our project's located. We're part of the global neighborhood, but we're really close to the Sunnyside neighborhood too. Just having the railroad tracks separating us, but we're really close to the Sunnyside neighborhood too. As you can recall, or maybe recall, our development, it's a 10-year development divided in 4 phases, but we're looking forward to start phase 1 early next year. But of course, us as developers and as Mexican developers, one of the most important steps for our developments is going and engaging with the surrounding community and neighborhoods. So that's why we have had over 15 meetings and counting with all of these organizations and RNOs, including you guys, the Sunnyside United Neighbors. In all of these meetings, we have heard a lot of opinions and concerns and things that people would love to see happening in our project. So after all of these meetings, we came up with these community commitments that we would like to share with you. I'm gonna go over each one of them, but please feel free to stop me or ask questions when needed. First is the site revitalization. As you may know, our site is now vacant, and we have constant problems with people breaking in and trespassing and stealing copper wire and other things in the property, as well as committing some crimes and doing some drugs. So the first thing that we want to do is finish with this and create this new space full of parks and open spaces where families and friends can gather. So that's the first thing that we've heard, that the community needed some retail and services and open spaces that they were lacking of in the community. Next up, we are also doing some off-site infrastructure improvements, and I know that this part will be the most interesting part for you. So we have committed on designing 4 infrastructure improvements and constructing 2 of them. So we're designing a cluster solution down at 38 and Fox Street. Right now, it's a little bit of a mess there, so we're creating probably 2 roundabouts to facilitate the entrance to the island. We're also designing and building this northern connection, which is the bridge that will connect to Sunnyside. I know that the last thing you heard, it was that this bridge was going to be a bike ped bridge, but now it's going to be a full modal bridge. So it will also contemplate having cars on it.
Wait a second. Could you please back up and repeat the 46th Avenue? You're contemplating cars?
Correct.
And what part about our major objections from our community did you not understand?
I thought the last thing we heard is that you would like this connection to be happening.
We have never wanted the automobile traffic and becoming a parallel facility for I-70 through our neighborhood. And how is this even being contemplated without a massive public engagement process of our neighborhood?
Well, if I can intercede here, I don't believe in either of the 2 calls that we've had. I think there was a lot of enthusiasm for the bridge, but the presumption was that it was not car related. So maybe Manuel or anybody on the team, if you can back up a little bit over the last 6 months and tell us how it is that that cars have potentially come back on, so that we can respond to that, because I don't think we have responded to it, and because I thought that was pretty much either unfeasible or budgetary issues.
It's just lying is what it is. It's lying. It's dragging CRL into these meetings and having CRL do this wonderful song and dance and then doing a bait and switch with people. It's absolutely inexcusable.
And I've got a question. Is this work already beginning? Because I was over in that area and there is a lot of dirt. Like every 5-10 minutes, there's a truck dumping 40 yards of dirt.
No, we haven't
Here it
started.
is.
That's a property on the south.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, they most
starting.
certainly have started. So
No, excuse me.
haven't.
Sorry.
That's
Sorry.
not our
Manuel,
development.
let me just back up 3 steps here, and I'm sorry. The mood has changed. This is.
oh yes, it has.
Yeah. Sorry.
Unbelievable.
Who has the
Unbelievable.
plan?
Catherine, can you let them give us some background?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, and I'll try to be as concise on this as possible. This is a process that we're doing with the city. This is not us trying to push this. This is a process that has been done with the city, and that is why the city is on this call. So these are
We are
suggestions.
the city. This is our city and our
Catherine,
neighborhood. And this
Catherine.
process has not been done with our neighborhood.
Catherine, can you let
Where's
him
the
finish,
10%
please?
statistical significance on our neighborhood supporting an automobile access through our neighborhood that acts as a parallel facility to I-70?
Okay. now can I just keep on
Please,
exposing? So
please, thank you.
yeah, so after this, I understand, and we have been juggling with a lot of solutions to what to do with the tax increment financing and what the necessities of the city and Dottie are. And we have been working in parallel. These are suggestions that the people from the city and the people from the Dottie and all the different institutions have told us. We're not pushing anybody, and we haven't done anything to undermine or to scheme or to do anything in that manner. Us as the owners of Fox Park, this is the part that we have been negotiating with the city, and this is what the city has been telling us that it would be to the best interest of the city. So I just wanted to intercede with that. CRL hasn't pushed anybody on that. Otherwise, we would have told this before in the processes with the city that have been complicated enough, and with our other counterparts in the other institutions related to the city. These are the discussions that have been moving along. And that's why we're committing to design and to fulfill the construction of 2 of those 4 designs. There's still a long way to go, but that's where the conversations have been going with the city. I just wanted to intercede with that, because this isn't either us or CRL pushing this. This is how the discussions have been coming to the city.
So,
Jose, is there somebody from the city that can talk further about the
Bill,
city's
this is-
perspective?
Bill, this is David Gaspers from Community Planning and Development. How you doing tonight?
Good, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not by any means the expert on this. There's, I believe Karen Good and Chris Nevitt and others are on here and could talk more in detail about this. But I just wanted to weigh in quickly on the bridge, just from a planning perspective, looking back and looking forward, and thinking how this bridge needs to be vetted and also be able to maybe work with the community to answer some of these outstanding issues. So first off, the station area plan from 2009 did call for a full modal bridge, and that was at 44th or 46th, I believe. The next step study, examined those 2 and said, hey, that doesn't make any sense.
Correct.
It look at 47th and then the I-70 tunnel. The northern portion of Sunnyside there, Blueprint Denver has as a community center. It's just an urban context. It'd be only up to 5 stories, relatively low scale, but it is an urban center. It's the future place designation. And so, that bridge as a multimodal connection could be connecting 2 community centers, on each side of the track there. So, it does implement the existing adopted policy of the city, and from a land use perspective, connects 2 community centers. With that said, I think there's a lot of outstanding issues on whether the bridge is feasible, and if the developer can actually respond to some of the concerns of the Sunnyside and all the neighbors really involved here, right? So I think,
This has had
I think
no
the
vetting with our community.
let's wait there, Catherine. By the way, good evening.
Oh,
Good to
David,
see you.
come
It's been a long
on.
time.
Give me a break. You guys have not been coming over here saying,
So
Catherine, it has,
there's
you're
something in
100%
the
correct.
future,
It's
though.
not been vetted, but
Right.
can you let them finish?
And
And
so,
then just one more thing I want to add before that movement of dirt that happened is us. We let the people from the Ironworks project use our land, and we have an agreement with them as neighbors that they could use our land to put their construction machinery and offices there instead of on the street. That's all you're seeing there. On the southern part of our property to the northern part of the Ironworks property that another developer is doing. They're called Rangewater, and they just came to us and asked us for 2 to 3 acres so they could not be invading the streets. And that's what you guys are seeing there. I just wanted to clarify that because I don't like those types of insinuations, and for what it's worth, We have been upfront with that, and we have been saying what we have been negotiating. And if it wasn't, it made it true from the next step study that was done here to the evolution of having a car crossing through the bridge. Let's just concentrate on that issue. And if there's not going to be a car crossing through the bridge, and it just turns into an emergency vehicle situation or something like that, that's dictated exactly by the authorities, not us as developers, or not us as owners of the property.
Well, I guess if I can try to keep us on a level plan here, I guess what I'd like to ask, and I'm not sure whether Karen or David, Jose, Manuel, which of you or all of you are most appropriate, but the bridge, it does need to be vetted. Catherine is 100% correct. Everybody may not feel the same way she does about it, but it does need to be vetted. I think many of us are excited, or were excited when it was a pedestrian bridge, but if it's to be considered as a car bridge, Sunnyside would very much like to be part of the vetting process, and there really hasn't been one. So can I get the commitment from the group of you that there will be a vetting process?
If I could just jump in real quick, Bill, and then maybe I can hand it back to the developers, because this is not about us here. But I think that would be the critical part of this, right? And that's the future, right? I was just talking about the adopted plan from 12 years ago. You do have a neighborhood planning initiative effort here for the near Northwest. I believe Ella Stevie might be on the call here, and she might be able to talk to that. But that's ramping up right now. And I think that could be done in parallel with the developer looking through this bridge. I think it's critical to understand the implications to Sunnyside on the north side, if that community center designation is the right future place type for you guys, and if this makes sense as a full multimodal bridge. And I think if it's determined that it isn't the right fit, then that's when we would have to ask that developer to pivot and examine the I-70 tunnel as that northern connection.
I have a question just about if or as we get into in the future vetting process, will it just be with Sunnyside, or will it include Chaffee Park? Because that's pretty darn close to them. And I would think if I live just a couple blocks north, that I might want to be engaged or have a say in stuff that could give me access to Fox Park and the light rail more, perhaps effortlessly.
Well, they are involved in the neighborhood planning initiative. So from that perspective, and Trupti, maybe you can weigh in here, but I would agree with David that as long as the timing for decisions on this bridge, are going to be accepting the idea that, it's going to be 18 months to 20 months from now before we have a completed neighborhood planning initiative, to have those married or parallel seems to make sense. Does that make sense to you, Trupti?
Maybe, okay. But I'm a little concerned as well, because this is the first time we're hearing this, and that's okay. What I really want to hear about is how the vetting process will go. In terms of NPI, NPI doesn't fund anything. It doesn't.
That was the last time you went to Singapore.
I'm sorry, somebody needs to mute. NPI doesn't. Zach, can you please? NPI does not actually dictate plans. It doesn't fund anything. It kind of talks about what people want and don't want. But when we're not really aware what the city is planning, it's really hard to determine whether we want that or not. So I think there's some concern here, rightly so, that this sounds a little more like bait and switch. However, I'm not surprised, because I asked a very pointed question the last time, that you're thinking of pedestrian bridge, but auto's not out of the table. And I think Jose or Manuel, one of you had to answer, and you said that's correct. So I knew that this was a possibility. So I'm more concerned about what that vetting process is going to look like, and how we can get more people to the table. Because if we were to get this information 2 days ago, I guarantee you I would have knocked on all of those businesses to come to this meeting to listen. right now I'm trying to figure out, how do I get you guys back to the table so everybody impacted can show up and participate? So
Can
that's
I,
what I'm
can
really
I,
excited about.
can I chime in
Absolutely.
and give you my commitment on this? I think that, as you saw from the beginning of the presentation, we are committed to designing this, and we would never design something that would affect you or our neighbors wherever if you weren't involved. We're doing, and if we go through this presentation a little bit further, and we could leave this with my commitment to you, that we would definitely involve you in this process of design. This has not been designed because it doesn't have the funding to be designed yet. There's nothing going on. You won't see cranes tomorrow going up to do this bridge for several reasons. Right now, it is not necessary. There isn't the traffic there that's necessary for this to happen.
You kidding me? There is a parallel facility immediately to the north that carries hundreds of thousands.
Okay. Sorry.
Catherine,
So I would give you my commitment to the people that are not shouting and being respectful, and the people that are not. I also will include whoever wants to be in this, because that's how we are. And we will vet this through together, and we will go in front of the city.
I'm sorry. You cannot sit here. This is a bait and switch. You cannot police my tone because I'm furious. You're showing us a map that says that this is a bike and bed bridge right now, while you're telling us it's going to be an auto bridge. This is going to function. Let me finish. This is going to be a parallel facility running through two neighborhoods, Globeville and Sunnyside, that serves people wanting to bypass traffic when it's backed up on I-70. That is exactly what's going to happen. This needs an EIS level of review.
Catherine, can you please let Jose finish the presentation? Jose and Manuel, can you go ahead?
Yeah, well, just finishing up, it's my commitment to you guys that there would never be a finished design or a start of construction without you being involved.
Thank
and
you.
We go through this together.
Thank you very much. I just like some heads up on these type of information, so we can get more people to participate.
And we think, and probably this is a perception of time, we think this is what we're doing right now because it's still in the process of being done. We haven't even sat down with the consultants to start the design of this. This is what the city has told us that we have to look into. So we're just presenting it to you as it is, right? We're not shading anything through this. We're not saying this is ready and designed, funded, and it's going to start tomorrow. This is a process that we have to go through. And my commitment to you is we will include the Sunnyside neighborhood as the main interested party for this to be done correctly.
May I just chime in as one of the PCD co-chairs who's been on every one of these Fox Park meetings and listened to them? I do not believe this is a bait and switch. It was never stated that it would not be. Everyone knew that Fox Park development team needed to get more trips into their development because right now there's only 2 access points. The city requires it. For the city to prove it, they need it. So there were 2 things on the table. One was under I-70, one was coming into Sunnyside. And it is true, the last meeting, it seemed to be suggested that the idea of a vehicular bridge into Sunnyside was on life support. And now it seems to have been given a bit of a shot here and is a much more realistic, if not the most realistic possibility. But I don't think there was a bait and switch here because it was never dead in the water. It was always a possibility. And we all knew that the Fox Park development team needed to prove that they were able to get more vehicular trips into their development. So I do think, though, I mean, obviously everyone on this call knows now that this is a very hot topic and people are very passionate about it. So this is the beginning of the conversation. And I think that's what Jose is trying to express. So let's all take a step back here. Know that this is going to be a hot topic. Let's get through I hear you, Catherine, and you're very passionate about it. I get that. We all get that. But And obviously, Jose, your team, you all know that you're going to receive a lot of resistance on some points. So this is very much the beginning of the conversation. Sunnyside wants to be involved as the city in any discussions. But I would suggest now, knowing that's the case, I'm going to hand it back to Jose to give any final thoughts on it. And then I suggest we proceed through the presentation, knowing that we may have to schedule a specific PCD meeting or community meeting sooner than later to discuss the very point of vehicular traffic or vehicular bridge coming into Sunnyside. Is that fair?
Yes, it's fair. And I just want to reinstate my commitment to you guys as neighbors that we won't let this happen without your participation and your knowledge and your input. And we'll pass this together and we'll end up where everybody is comfortable in it. And we want to go through this presentation.
Could I jump in here for just a second? This is Shannon Gifford. I'm from the mayor's office. I just want to make a parallel commitment that the city is also committed to continue, to speaking with the neighbors and working this through a community involved process. And I also appreciate James's comments, and I'm happy to sort of reiterate or reinforce that. However, it needs to be reiterated or reinforced, but it's not anybody's intention to sort of design something behind anybody's backs or without full community involvement.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jose Manuel.
So Bill, I know Dura's in the call and I don't know if they have a lot of time left. So would you want me to finish the presentation? I think we're on the middle of it, or do you want to hear from Dura?
I guess if you can get through the end of the presentation fairly quickly, and because I do think, again, speaking for myself, I'm very curious to hear more about the specifics on TIF financing.
Okay, so I'll do it quick as that I can. We're also committed on doing a tree canopy program focused on global. We're donating 60 trees per year over a 10-year duration. And we're also throwing an annual event to have the community planting these trees. We will be also supporting a lot of the youth programs that Global has, and we'll be committed of funding $12,000 annually for these nonprofit organizations to support people in Global, also with a 10-year duration. And then we have a 4-part housing and economic benefits proposal, and this was driven by the community also. The first is creating a home ownership affordable housing fund. We're committing on funding over 7 years, $4.25 million directed to 50% AMI home ownership opportunities. And what we would be doing would be buying units, writing down the price so that we can make them permanently affordable at a 50% AMI for families. We're also creating this housing assistance program. This housing assistance program consists on property tax assistance, rental assistance, down payment assistance for new rentals, and also housing rehab projects. We are working with Habitat for Humanity and Brothers Redevelopment for this piece, and Birdseed Collective will be the fiscal agent for this. As well with Birdseed Collective, we're creating some economic opportunity programs. We'll do an asset listing program for the businesses on the neighborhoods around us, and we will be also having some community training for growing wealth opportunities. This specific program, as well as the housing assistance program, will have a $2 million funding over 7 years. And as you might also have heard, the World Trade Center will be relocating to Fox Park. They have also a lot of workforce development programs and trainings. They have an important immigration and refugee workforce development initiative that we will be working with them to throw out in our site. And we will also be having on-site affordable rental units. We'll be doing 5% of all units at an affordable rate with a 99-year covenant. 25% of these units will be at 60% AMI, and then 75% of these units will be at 80% AMI, with a unit mix that reflects the market mix. This is basically all of the presentation.
Thank you. There are two hands up. Chris Nevitt, you had your hand up. Did you have a question? And then Tripti, you've got your hand up as well.
I'll let Chris go first.
Actually,
Chris, are you still
was-
on? Thanks. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna answer or address some of the previous discussion, but I don't want to take us backwards. So
Okay.
carry on.
All right. Tripti, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So a couple of things, Jose, I appreciate your commitment to keeping us involved and, making sure that there is going to be a community process. And taking it back to Bill's question about timing for NPI and such, I'd like to understand or maybe get your commitment that, this pedestrian bridge, and maybe this is a city question, is going to not happen before NPI, where the people get an opportunity to talk about what they want their neighborhood, especially the area of change, to look like. Because my fear and concern is that this gets started and funded before NPI comes out. That's one. The other thing I do want to point out to say and comment on, especially with all of the other heated, discussion, is I know this developer group is committed. I spoke with, District 9 Council Office because I wanted to ask them how they felt about what's happening in their area. And they gave me some positive feedback about you guys. And I wanted to put that on record too, that, there is, you guys, I believe, do have the integrity that you are, going to do what you say based on a little background research I did. So I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Like I said, I like someone's commitment that the NPI process will have an opportunity to work itself out before this is funded and approved. I don't know if that's Karen or someone else on the call, but I would like somebody to address the timing issue on this decision on the feasibility study, which we know that's kind of already been done, the timing on this pedestrian bridge and NPI being 18 months away.
So I will say, just from a construction and feasibility standpoint, and I'm sorry, I realized that I'm in a dark hole, so hold on, there we go. I don't live in a dark hole. Just from a general standpoint, we don't have detailed designs for anything, regardless of whether that's a pedestrian bridge or has more modes or emergency access or any of those things. The 41st and Fox Next Step study looked at high-level feasibility, and that is very preliminary design. So a lot of work would need to be done in order to do any kind of bridge. And if we had 100% approved plans for a bike ped bridge on that 47th alignment, today it would be challenging to have that complete in 18 months.
I'm more concerned about it being
which we don't by any means. Sorry.
Right. I guess I'm just a little concerned because that the Fox Island infrastructure study indicated to us, at least as an RNO, that auto wasn't feasible because you had to go above the train tracks and under the utility. That's what we heard. And now it is feasible enough to study further? Am I?
Money, Troopy.
So-
It's all about money.
Okay,
Well,
Chris?
if I could complete that. So the feasibility study has yet to be, the next step study has not been finalized yet. That is in the process of being finalized, and that does, we're working on the language around all those pieces and parts. But where we were at the final public meeting, which you can reference on the website, it's there, was that there are variations of bridges that work. Some of the challenges, we talked about some of the challenges of a multimodal bridge. And on the sunny side or west side of the rail, the biggest challenge is the impact to the street grid, because you have an existing street grid and the landing of that bridge would have more impact than a bike ped bridge, because as you guys are aware of, with some recent bike ped bridges, you could have elevators or a helix at the end, whereas an auto bridge generally has to, have more of a arched grade. The challenge is not getting over the rail. That's challenging for sure for either a multimodal or a bike ped bridge. It's challenging to get over the rail and through the utilities and whatnot. You're kind of threading a needle there. But regardless of whether it is a bike ped or multimodal bridge, we found some different feasibility options for that. The cost is significantly increased, which again, you all saw during the throughout the 41st and Fox process of all the different challenges there. So there are challenges and there are things to be worked through still, and there are not definitive answers on what absolutely can be built. There's pros and cons and challenges. And I know Chris Nevitt would like to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think
add
Chris
to that.
probably wants to add to your comment.
No fucking.
And then we've got Flossie and Catherine after that.
Oh dear. I just want to review a little bit the trajectory to this point. So as David Gaspers said, we did a station area plan over a decade ago now that has been our lodestar all along. The station area plan planned for full modal access either on a 44th Avenue alignment or a 46th Avenue alignment between Fox Island and Sunnyside. So that's the station area plan calling for a full modal bridge in one of those two locations. When we first started working on the Fox Park site, we started to dig into that in more detail and understood that the potential impacts on both sides of the bridge because of the approach structures necessary to get over the tracks. Those impacts were, I think, unacceptable all around. And so the bridge got moved to, and this was adopted in a general development plan for Fox Park. The bridge called for in the plan got moved to a 47th Avenue alignment. So that was memorialized in a general development plan that the bridge would be on a 47th Avenue alignment to stay away from the center part of the Sunnyside neighborhood, and as well as the center part of the Fox Island neighborhood. And then when we did the next step study, I haven't been in all the Sunnyside meetings, but I was definitely a participant through the next step study. The next step study was reviewing, the feasibility, getting to a greater degree of specificity and detail on the various transportation components. And the next step study identified, well, there's actually an alternative. You could do a tunnel under I-70, or you could do a bridge over the tracks on the 47th Avenue alignment. And the analysis there was about the feasibility and the relative cost of either one of those options. And for particular sort of CPD reasons, there's a reason to point to, to stick to the plan, which is a 47th Avenue alignment full modal bridge. But the Next Step study introduced an alternative, which is a tunnel under I-70. So the direction following, again, these plans and adopted plans build on each other. The next move here is with Fox Park, and all these plans lead to see if you can figure out the 47th Avenue bridge alignment.
For God's sake.
Obviously, there's needs to be, additional plenty of engineering, plenty of consultation with the community, seeing it.
There needs to be an EIS, Chris.
Please don't interrupt, Catherine. You objected to other people interrupting you, so just let me run my course here, and then
Catherine,
I'll take whatever
you're up.
got.
Catherine, you're up next.
So that's the direction that the city is giving to Fox Park, is see if you can solve the problems associated with a 47th Avenue alignment bridge. And if that can't be solved, then we pivot to a tunnel under I-70. But James is absolutely correct. A northern connection of some kind is absolutely imperative for this project to succeed. And the Next Step study has pointed to both those options, and all of our planning work leading up to this point prioritize the 47th Avenue alignment bridge as a full modal bridge. So I just wanted to provide that frame and that sense of trajectory for how we got here.
So Catherine, you're up next, but we do have the Dura presentation yet in front of us. So if you and then Tripti also has her hands up, if you guys could be brief, that'd be great.
My biggest gripe with this is that nobody from anywhere west of here, this is going to be a parallel facility to I-70 during rush hour. People will get on at Sheridan and come down 46, coming past the few parks that we have available to us in this area. They'll come screaming through the neighborhood down to this area in order to bypass the backed up traffic on I-70. They'll use it to wind through over the I-25 bridge into Globeville. They'll run through that neighborhood that has been absolutely decimated by I-70 construction. It's insane to me. And, we have waited 20 years to have a light rail station that is functional. We have cities all over the world. Hell, the person who wrote our station area plan, G.B. Arrington, lives in Spain and was living in Barcelona until recently, where they have super blocks and where they have figured out ways to get car dominance out of neighborhoods so that people can have the ability to walk to transit and get out of their cars. I mean, what qualifications do you have, Chris, to be a TOD planner even? I mean, do you have a planning degree? Have you ever been a planner? Have you ever, done this in any other city besides losing an election and getting nepotistically appointed to that position? It's unbelievable.
So Chris, you don't need to answer that. Tripti, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I've got a question for, the Dottie representatives here. My question is, how can people follow this assessment work more closely? Because I think being surprised, is not what we want. And as part of the neighborhood organization, I feel our mission is to make sure people are as informed as possible. And so how can people follow this work, the assessment work that will lead to the powers that be that make a decision on whether this is going to be auto or pedestrian? What's the best way?
Sure. If Karen, can you just hold that for a second, and can we get one more question in from Flossie, and then we'll turn it over to Dottie, and you can answer that question at the very beginning of your presentation. Thanks. Go ahead, Flossie.
Thanks, Bill. My question was about the last slide that Jose presented about affordable housing on the Fox Park site. And it was it said like a total of 5% of the units of the rental units would be affordable. And I was just hoping you could remind me, like, kind of roughly how many units are planned to be rental and how many are planned to be owned, and are there any affordable among any owned units?
So we're
So-
only having rental units on site. Yeah, and the affordable units would be around 170 units.
170. Oh, the 5% represents 170. Got it.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
So that's all the hands that are raised. So Karen and the Dottie folks, if you can answer Tripti's question and then tell us more about TIF, that'd be great.
Okay, so actually that's Dura, not Dottie, but
I'm
so
sorry.
I'm gonna pass the mic to Tracy and her and Mike to talk more about Dura, and just Tripti, to your question about how to stay more involved and be in the loop. As I mentioned, we are working on finalizing the next step study, and we're looking at the possibility of the city doing a bit more work on that 47th bridge to have a deeper understanding of what the implications are, since there have been some varying conversations about that. We were leaning more towards that northern connection, as Chris mentioned, and based on some feedback from our planning partners in planning, there's been a bit of a renewed interest in looking at what more could be done as related to the multimodal capacity of the bridge. So we're looking into doing some more study on that, and can have a public, can look into how we can share that, and possibly, as I think David Gaspers mentioned, there is obviously the neighborhood planning initiative, and there may be some opportunity to find some synergy between those two efforts, and use the neighborhood planning initiative as a means to share information there, as well as collaborate and coordinate with, oh my God, cute cat. Collaborate and coordinate with the development team as we get some more information there that can be provided to them, and we can all work together, because I think the end goal here is not to surprise anyone and not to work in opposition, but to work in partnership and to find a means to come up with the best possible movement forward, whatever that may be, and use data and real design to help understand what the options, implications, pros, cons, all of those details are. And I know that folks are coming from a place of passion. I'm a Sunnyside resident, so this was my neighborhood meeting. James lives around I could yell at James from my backyard. So I usually don't. His child does yell sometimes, but we don't yell at each other. And I think that's usually called crying. But anyhow, big picture is that we will work on, as Shannon mentioned, we will work collaboratively in getting more information, working with everyone in this group, and certainly surrounding neighborhoods, especially Globeville, because that is where the heart of this development lies, and work together to determine all the information to help get everyone in the loop on the conversation, and all the pieces that we need to further evaluate these issues. Is
Thanks,
that
Karen.
Karen, what's the time frame for when the next step study would be out to the community?
Oh, James, that's a great question. We've been working on some of the final language, in particular around some of the connectivity issues. And I have said it is coming out next month for approximately the last 12 months. My cohort that has been helping finalize the study, who is our guru, is just got a promotion and leaves next week. So I am really hoping we can finalize the language next week, so I actually have somebody to make those changes. and get that out to folks by the end of September. But if it takes a little longer, that would not be surprising. So we're working on it and really hope it will be by the end of this month.
Do you anticipate pulling the working team together again, since it's been so long, or having another community meeting again since that last meeting? I mean, frankly, I was the representative for SUNY, and I thought
Right.
the next step study was done. So
it was really close to finished, and,
Okay.
and we've had a lot of conversations. When we don't wrap things up immediately, additional conversations and information end up coming to be part of that study, which is great, but makes it more challenging to wrap up. So that's a great question, and that's something I've been pondering, how we come together
back out.
again.
Okay.
So that's something that I'll be working on, and reach out to our stakeholder group, certainly with the updated draft. It might not be dramatically different from what you saw before. So what I'll probably do is reach out to folks and say, here's where we are. Let us know if we want to have another community gathering. It would likely be virtual, but that's what I'm thinking. And we do have some other outreach in the neighborhood, so some other
Right.
opportunities as well.
Okay, so why don't we switch gears to TIF? And just as a programming note for everybody, I've been chatting with Ella from City Planning, who is going to be doing our NPI exercise. And she and I both agree that this dialogue right now, especially with the incredible group of people we have on the call, is important that we don't shortchange it. So we're going to reschedule the NPI exercise for a separate standalone call next week. So we do have a little bit of breathing room, thanks to Ella, to hear more about TIF. So if you guys can take that over.
Yeah, no problem. And this is Ella. I just want to chime in. I am here. I'm as a planner on the Near Northwest Area Plan. This is a really important conversation for me to be up to speed on. Yeah, I'm going to be listening till the end. So if Bill, if we do have time at the end and people have questions, or want to provide input on how this new information in the context of the plan, I'm happy to chat about that.
That might be a great idea. Thanks. Okay. Tracy, are you taking us through it?
I am. And hopefully this will, can everyone see the presentation?
It looks great.
Terrific.
Yes.
Okay. And thank you for rescheduling. I was getting very, very anxious that we would have just a few minutes to try to get through this topic. So I really appreciate you allowing us the time to walk through this. So again, my name is Tracy Huggins. I am the Executive Director of the Denver Urban Renewal Authority. What I would like to do is walk through this presentation, which is probably about 15 minutes or so, to describe these things, who we are, what our role in the project is going to be, talk very specifically about the tax increment financing plan at Fox Park, talk very briefly about the urban redevelopment plan, and then certainly, as time permits, make sure that we're able to address any questions that you may have. So I don't know how familiar you all are with DURA, but we are the city's urban renewal agency. We are not a direct city department, but instead we are charged under state statute with helping with the elimination of slum and blighted areas throughout Denver. I'll speak a little bit more about what blight means in just a minute. Everything that we do requires city council approval, but our partner almost always is the private sector developer. So you'll see in just a moment how we are looking to tie those pieces together. The bulk of this presentation is going to focus on our redevelopment department, which is one of the two departments we have at DURA. But I really want to be able to take an opportunity to describe what our housing department does. It is no secret that when new development happens in an area, that there can be pressures that are put on the surrounding areas as a result of this new development. And one of those pressures could be, and we have seen in the past, can be pressures on the residents of that area. So we at Dura have been a proud partner with the City and County of Denver for well over 40 years in implementing several affordable single-family rehab programs on behalf of the city. They are available to those folks who own their homes who have AMI at 80% or below. We currently are administering 3 programs. The first of those is a single-family rehab program, which allows qualifying homeowners to borrow up to $50,000 to make necessary improvements to their homes. If the homeowner is 50% AMI or below, it is a 0% deferred loan that is due upon sale or transfer of the property. If the homeowner is 51 to 80%, there's another breakdown between how much of that total loan is going to be repaid at 1%, and then how much of that is also then included as a deferred loan, again, only due at sale, wanting to try to make these monies as affordable and unburdensome as we can for the homeowner. So we have single family rehab. We have emergency home repair, which is intended to address those emergency issues that, if not addressed, really make the home uninhabitable. Under that program, again, it's available for homeowners making 80% AMI or below. You can borrow up to $10,000 for necessary improvements. If it is $2,500 or less, it is a grant that does not require any repayment. If it's above $2,500 up to the $10,000, again, it's a 0% deferred loan. And then the last program that we are administering is our RAMP program, which is a handicap accessibility program. And this program is available not only to income qualifying homeowners, but also to renters to be able to borrow up to $10,000 have it as a grant. RAMP is a grant in order to help make accessibility improvements in the home. So thank you for letting me spend just a moment talking about our housing programs. We are very proud of the work that we do under these programs. And again, recognize that we need all of this assistance as we are looking to also support redevelopment in an area as well. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking again about why and how Dura comes to participate in a project. And so I want to talk about the 3 primary players that are involved in any development. And I'm going to start with the public sector. And this bubble is intended to include the city and the community, because the city is responsible for the big picture visioning for the residents of their city. They do a number of planning efforts that are intended to set forward a very long-term view for the city. And in this specific project, as we've already talked about, there are a host of existing city plans that are in place, starting with Plan 2040, the city's new comprehensive plan, Blueprint Denver. There's the existing Globeville neighborhood plan, the 41st and Fox Station area plan, and the Next Step study, all of which you are very familiar with. But we, Dura, really look to how those plans are coming together to be able to inform what the development community is looking to do consistent with those plans. In this specific project, the developer is Vita. I want to clarify, and hopefully I won't confuse the issue too terribly much here, but the project that Dura is engaging with the Vita developer is the horizontal developer. Vita right now has put forward an application to us under which they are the horizontal developer. It doesn't mean they can't also be the vertical developer, but the expectation is they will put these necessary horizontal development improvements in place, and then another entity will likely develop the vertical construction consistent with the plans that Vita has put forward.
Tracy, I don't understand what that means, horizontal, vertical. So I just wanted to jump in quickly if you could explain that language.
Absolutely. So from a horizontal developer or development standpoint, think of infrastructure. Think of the roads, the parks. In this project, it also is going to include delivery of parking, that then with that infrastructure in place, the horizontal development is then ready to transfer that improved land to another developer who will actually build the buildings on top of the land that has been readied for development. So the vertical development is that it's the building of those buildings or a tenant coming into an existing building, whereas the horizontal is really that at or below grade improvements that are necessary to support the ultimate vertical development. Does that help, James? Hopefully you can see my hand gestures because
yes, that helps. Thank you very much.
And with any developer, they have a shorter term view. Obviously, they can't address everything that these city plans are looking to do. And they want to make sure that they are able to undertake a project that is financially feasible for them. They care an awful lot, as you have heard, about their reputation and their ability to do right by the city and the community in advancing the various objectives of those city plans through their development. And then lastly, you need the money to be able to bring together any project. And the capital markets are going to look to say, Vita, are you going to be able to actually pay back any monies that you borrow? Are your investors going to be able to be repaid? And so they are looking to make sure that there is that financial feasibility. And in many circumstances, these three things happen together quite seamlessly. But there are those areas where there just isn't enough private investment necessary to support the project. And it's in those circumstances that DURA and the use of tax increment comes into play to be able to close that financing gap, to allow the capital stack to work to support the development program that is again consistent with what the public sector has been looking to achieve. So that's generally how it is that DURA gets involved. We have been listening to your meetings in the past as the developer in the city and the community have been working on negotiating this overall program. And we are now at a point where we have enough information to be able to do our evaluation of the development plan, our financial evaluation, to be able to continue to advance the conversations with the community in our ultimate goal of seeking city council approval of an urban renewal plan that will also authorize the use of tax increment financing. So to be clear, the area that many of those plans refer to is what's outlined in purple here, the 41st and Fox area. The area that DURA is focused on, what that would be the boundaries of a proposed urban redevelopment area, is just the property that is the Fox Park project. So everything that we do will be deriving the tax increment from the boundaries that are outlined in orange there. So I mentioned that we can only undertake our work if an area has been determined to be blighted. That is a determination that is made by City Council based on evidence that we, the Urban Renewal Authority, present for their consideration. Blight is a term that is defined in state statute. We ask a consultant to survey the site to determine whether or not there are factors that are consistent with the state statute definition of blight that are both present and limiting the developability of the area. It is a two-pronged test. So we have undertaken a condition study that has come back and noted which factors of blight are present. And again, want to emphasize that we cannot move forward until an urban redevelopment plan has been adopted by City Council. I am not going to read through all 11 factors of blight. This is what they are. Those that are highlighted in red are those factors of blight that we have found to be present on the site and limiting the developability of the area. When we look to bring tax increment to a project, there should be a connection between what the tax increment is ultimately going to be used to pay for and how that remedies those blighting conditions. In addition, the tax increment can be used to help support the overall development plan. In the project that has been presented to us, and again, the project for Dura will be supporting the construction of the infrastructure improvements, parks and open space, and the parking facilities that will support that ultimate vertical development. So the tax increment will be looked to reimburse, and I'll come back to that term in just a moment, certain demolition costs, infrastructure, both inside that orange boundary, so within the urban renewal area itself, as well as those other regional infrastructure improvements, the southern cluster configuration, the northern solution, as well as the design costs for the other two, the Huron and the eastern connection as well. Certain site work, again, to remedy those blighting conditions. And then a significant cost of this project is the delivery of the parking necessary to support the dense development that is expected to occur both through the VITA plan, again, consistent with what the station area plan is looking for this site to become. And then public realm, really read into that the parks and open space. The amount of tax increment assistance is still being determined because there is still some movement on what the actual development of the project will ultimately cost. So I am going to spend a minute on this slide, and then there's one other that follows this that just is a visual of this, but just want to talk for a few minutes about tax increment and how it works. Again, it is part of the urban redevelopment plan that is approved by City Council, and it allows the Urban Renewal Authority to capture the newly created incremental sales and property taxes that are achieved through redevelopment of a site. So we first look to establish a base because the property right now is paying taxes, and the amount of the base needs to continue to be paid to the current taxing entities, which would include the City and County of Denver, Denver Public Schools, and urban drainage and flood control. Once that base is established and actual development then begins to happen, the amount of taxes, again, both sales and property tax are available for us to capture. That incremental amount comes to Dura, and we can use that to reimburse costs that the developer advances. And I want to pause just for a moment and talk about the way that we would work with the developer on repaying those costs. Dura, when we use TIF, can either reimburse the developer as they have already incurred those costs, and then as the increment is generated, we can repay them, or we can also issue bonds out into the market, have those monies available, and pay those costs currently. Because of the way that this development is working, with the horizontal needing to be completed first before then there is vertical construction, and it will be the vertical construction that really generates the increment, this is going to be structured, at least initially, as a reimbursement transaction. And I want to emphasize that because going back to some of the earlier conversation about the timing of when things are going to happen and what costs are going to be incurred, that will give us the opportunity to work with you, with the city, with the developer in the management of when we would be in a position to reimburse those costs as those developments, those infrastructure solutions are ultimately determined. Again, the normal taxing entities continue to receive the revenues attributable to the base, and we can only capture the increment for a period not to exceed 25 years. So this is a very basic graph intended to show what I have just described. The lower portion there, the darker color, would be the base amount. Again, all taxes attributable to that continue to flow to the current taxing entities, and then is that newly created tax revenue that Dura is able to capture that we then use to pay for the cost that the project is responsible for. So if only it were that straightforward, right? So our taxes are a little complicated, and I want to make sure as well that we're able to talk about what TIF does and what TIF does not do to your tax bill. So in Denver, Everybody pays their taxes to the city, to DPS and urban drainage based on a set city DPS urban drainage determined mill levy. And you pay $1 for every $1,000 of assessed value. Everybody in Denver pays the same thing. There can be, and there is already, and will continue to be in this development, a special district that is able to assess additional mill levies on the property within the special district boundaries, the metropolitan district boundaries. So the property within the Fox Park urban renewal area and tax increment area will pay additional mill levies on their property, but that is not as a result of the tax increment. The tax increment doesn't change the taxing structure by adding new mills. It's because of the utilization of the metropolitan district. So if you hear that tax increment increases the taxes that you pay, that is not true. We cannot levy a tax. We are though able to capture all of the taxes. This is the next slide here. When we use tax increment, we capture all of the incremental taxes that are levied by all of the taxing entities, city, DPS, urban drainage, as well as the metropolitan districts. That being said, before City Council can approve the use of tax increment, we, DURA, have to enter into agreements directly with DPS, with urban drainage, and with the metropolitan district about how much of their respective property tax increment we can pledge to the project. So we'll pass through the special district amounts to them in their entirety. It will depend on what urban drainage and DPS may themselves need based on how the development program may impact their ability to deliver services to determine how much of their increment we will be able to pledge. So we have had a very long history of partnering with these other taxing entities. So we have been entering into these agreements well before the state law was changed in 2016. Now the law does require us to actually have entered into these agreements before we ask for city council consideration of the plan. Again, each of those taxing entities will look to say, what is the project? And in this instance, it won't necessarily just be the horizontal development, but it'll be the full development program that they will need to be able to consider in determining how much they may need. And so again, going back to that earlier conversation, you can imagine that it will make a difference to DPS what that ultimate northern connection looks like. Because if it's going more into the Sunnyside neighborhood, that is going to have a different potential outcome on their ability to deliver services than if there's a connection under I-70. We will have those negotiations with DPS and work to address their needs. And that impact evaluation is still in progress. So, like I said, we have been working with the developer and the city for a long time now. Believe we are at that point where we certainly need to have this type of a conversation with you to talk about who we are, what we do. There is still work to be done to really have the business deal be finalized. There will be a development agreement between the developer and the city that memorializes many of the things that Manuel spoke about earlier. We will continue based on that then to determine the ultimate parameters of the tax increment that is available, and then any other components that may still be necessary to achieve. If we can stay on our current schedule, our plan would be to seek DURA board approval of the urban renewal plan and those agreements with the other taxing entities at our meeting in October, all with a goal of having us in front of City Council for approval of the urban renewal plan by the middle of November. Happy to answer any questions. I know I threw a lot of information. I have a tendency to use jargon. Please, let me try to address any questions that anyone may have. Bill,
let me unmute. Sorry, Catherine and Trupti, you both have your hands up. Do either of you have questions? Or did your hands just remain up?
No, I have probably lots of questions because I think this is really complicated. And I kind of feel like it's above my pay grade to understand it all. I've read some things and I'm trying to understand, the impact to residents who move in. That's one thing. Who is the taxing entity and who gets money for 25 years? I'm trying to understand some of those logistics, which I don't really understand with this type of pool.
Sure. So on this slide, can you all see that? Did it change the view?
No, we can see it.
Okay. So when I talk about the taxing entities, it's the city.
Okay.
It's Denver Public Schools, and it's urban drainage and flood control. Those are the taxing entities across the city and county of Denver, period. This project, and this is what I was afraid of, this project gets a little bit more complicated because it also has a metropolitan district, and they are also able to levy taxes against the property for purposes of paying and maintaining the infrastructure within their boundaries.
And I think it's the special district piece of it. And I don't know why I think from reading this, but where does the developer fit in? Do they become an entity and overseer of some of this money that, and this is where I've heard that there's oversight issues and maybe Dura has fixes. And I'm trying to understand some of those things that actually go wrong. And
Sure.
I'm trying to understand a little bit about those.
Sure. So I will do my best here. And Mike Gerton is Dura's resident a special district expert, even though we are not a special district. So Mike, if you hear me say something incorrect or feel you want to add something, by all means, feel free to chime in. So
Okay.
when we talk about how the money flows, now actually I'll just leave it here. So the developer, from a regular total citywide taxing standpoint, they can't do anything. Again, the city sets their mill levy, DPS sets their mill levy, urban drainage does. So when the tax increment is being used, forget the special district for a moment. Everybody that is in a tax increment area pays their taxes just like anybody else. You get your tax bill, you pay your taxes to the city, and the developer doesn't have anything to do with that. What is different in a tax increment area is how those monies are then divided. So when new monies come in after development is happening at the project site, the first amounts get paid over. Now I'm going to scroll back up. The first amounts get paid over to the city, to DPS, and to urban drainage to fill the amount that they were collecting before the tax increment was put in place. So we have to keep them whole based on whatever they were collecting before the tax increment was put in place. They will continue to collect that. Then what happens above those collections are paid to Dura. So those come directly to Dura. They do not go to the developer. They come to Dura, and then Dura, under the terms of an agreement that we will enter into, likely with the developer and the metropolitan district, we will then reimburse costs that the developer or the district has incurred consistent with those projects that I described earlier: the infrastructure, the parks and open space, the parking. So we control the money. The developer has to perform to have actual development create the increment. The money comes to us, and if they can demonstrate that they have incurred the costs, we will take the tax increment and reimburse them. Now,
So Tracy, let me try and translate that. So basically what it does is it pegs the incremental taxes to reimburse or make whole the developer for the money that they put into certain infrastructure improvements.
for certain costs, yes, exactly. Yep.
So in the case as the multimodal bridge has dominated this conversation. This is a potential way for the Fox Park team to get reimbursed for additional money they would spend in making the 47th bridge, vehicular bridge, feasible.
Yes, and you're hearing me and seeing me hesitate because we will reimburse the costs for those regional infrastructure improvements at whatever they end up being per the continued negotiation between and among the city, the community, and the developer. So yes, the cost of those regional infrastructure improvements are TIF eligible and would pay would play a significant role in the amount of tax increment that we would make available to the VITA developer.
So Jose and his team might be saying, listen, we thought it wasn't feasible to do 47th vehicular because it was so astronomically expensive. So we thought we'd go under I-70. However, in discussions with the city, we may be able to increase the amount of TIF that would make it feasible because we would be reimbursed for those additional millions of dollars in cost. And Jose, you can chime in if you'd like.
Yeah.
And if I'm overstepping, then let me know.
Yeah, it goes both ways. You said it correctly. So we start saying, well, this one or this one, and what is more feasible to the city and to Dura, correct me if I'm wrong, to be reimbursed, because we have X amount of money on our side to put in, and the difference would be put up by the Dura TIF thing. So that's how it works. I think I said it correct.
But I would add to that yes, the TIF financing matters in the overall conversation, but we are the followers of the ultimate decision that is made regarding the infrastructure. And if the TIF is sufficient, then it will be made available, but would encourage everyone to make the decision based on what is the right thing to do, as opposed to, is there enough tax increment?
So is that, Tracy, this is Trippy again. So is the special district a additional tax, that on top of what everybody already pays? So folks moving into Fox area are going to be at a higher tax rate because it's a special district.
Yes. Yes. And that is the distinction that I want to make.
I might clarify that a little bit. My name is Mike Gerton. I'm also with Dura. And I think that the Metropolitan District has the ability to not tax residential tenants, with a mill levy, and may only choose to tax commercial entities that live or that reside within the Metro District boundaries. And so I think that the blanket assumption that a person's property tax payments would go up is unknown right now. And I think maybe Jose or Manuel could speak to that in terms of what they plan on levying for mill levy, but it is good to note that there is flexibility with the Metropolitan District to not have a residential tenant pay extra taxes.
Thank you for that clarification. He's absolutely right.
Yeah, I get that.
And let me just,
can I just more, right?
Yeah, let me chime in. Let me tell you how it's done and how we've been in discussions with residential multifamily operators that we're talking with. What they do is they ask us, how much of a mill are you increasing on the property tax? We tell them. They put that into their operational costs. But since it's a market-driven business, they say, well, the market right now is eligible to pay $2 per square foot, and they have to see the business side. They wouldn't increase $2.2 per square foot because the 0.2, and these are all examples,
right?
Is the mill levy. So this is from the marketing business side of things. That's how the developers are looking at it. They put that into like paying the normal property tax. They elevate the mill levy and they say, is this a business or not with this additional mill levy? Because they have to be in market to attract the tenants.
Thank you. I see we're already at 8:03, so I'm not going to pursue the rest of my questions further. Thank you.
Well, this is all very technical, and being that we are at 8:03, I'm going to wrap up. I would like, so there's many different players here and things at work. The main thing that came out of this conversation is, once again, a bridge, a vehicular bridge into Sunnyside is back on the table. Jose, from your side, are you in a waiting game at this point to hear from the city as to whether it's feasible and whether the funding is there? Or when do we need to hear from you next? Because we don't want this to move so fast, and I know we have your commitment. We don't want this to move so fast that we're being reactive rather than proactive. And we do need to get in front of the Sunnyside community and understand what they want. So what are the next steps from your side, or what will you be pursuing in the near term?
So basically, once we hang up, we will put we would put an agenda, a meeting on the agenda to sit down with the city, because we take this seriously and we hear you as our neighbors, and we will address this and also have a formal meeting with you guys about this and put this into the reasonable scenario that it has to be in. There is a truth that it's a process between a lot of elements, and but we can, some way, shape, or form, try to mold it to the interests of the people that are there and the neighbors that we have. And that's what we're going to start doing. And that's our commitment, that we won't leave you out of it and suddenly realize that what's going to happen, and whatever comes out of this, our commitment is to invite you to participate, to comment, to look at everything like we've been doing with the other RNOs in Global First. And like, you guys have seen and said and heard about District 9. That's what we've been doing. We've been sitting down with neighbors, with RNOs, with anybody that has an opinion. We've taken it into consideration, and we've put everything to the consideration of all the different players. So now this is the issue with Sunnyside, and this is the issue with us now, with you, and we will solve it together.
Okay, I think that's where we need to leave it right now. We'll be in touch, but it affects Sunnyside and neighborhoods beyond Sunnyside. So this is a big item for us, and we're just starting the conversation.
Correct.
All right, well, unless anyone else has anything to say, I'm gonna end it there then. Okay, thanks for everyone's time. Thank you very much for the presentation, Tracy. Jose, thank you to you and Manuel for being on the call, and everyone who participated. We'll talk to you soon. Thank
James,
you.
before you hang up, I have to tell you, my computer shut down right at the very end. So should I just follow up with Manuel to understand what I missed? I am so sorry. Talk about the worst timing ever.
Oh, no problem. There's two things, Tracy. You could follow up with him, or we'll have this recording out on the Sunnyside YouTube page pretty much immediately.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And again, I just want to say, I know this is technical. I know it can be confusing. We are happy to meet with you whenever and however often would be appropriate. So want to make sure that there's real transparency and real clarity on what we're doing.
Absolutely. It'd probably take more than just one meeting. It's pretty technical, but it's also very interesting to see the inner workings of it. So I appreciate that offer, and we'll likely take you up on it.
Fantastic. Look forward to it. All right. Thank you, James.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thanks.